Hey, before we get into today's episode, I just want to give a quick disclaimer and let you know that we are talking about death and dying. These topics can be triggering, but if you feel ready to go ahead and dive in, settle in, grab some tea, some coffee, whatever helps you feel nourished as we talk about this topic today. All right, see you in the episode. Bye.
One of the primary limitations, I think, is that we are pathologizing the human experience to
Mm-hmm.
such a degree that people think there's something wrong with them, when really what's happening is they're just experiencing what someone who is
Yeah.
in their position would naturally and organically experience. And what
Mm-hmm.
we don't have is an adequate understanding of what that is like and how to help people in it.
Hello, and welcome to the Empress Podcast. I am your host, Jessica, known in the online space as Jess the Empress. I started this podcast to help you be present with yourself, cope with chaos, and simplify your life. I do this by combining psychology, behavioral science, and the tarot. I have a background in mental health, specifically a master's in clinical social work from USC, and I'm a professional tarot reader. So get ready to have a nurturing, creative, and empowering experience with me as we use practical magic. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Empress Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you. I'm excited. I have a special guest with us today, Liz. She is one of my really good friends. We met in grad school in 2015. So this was like forever ago, it feels like.
It does feel
Um,
like a long time.
yeah. But Liz, will you let us, the audience, know who you are? Give us your working title. And also, listeners like to know zodiac signs. So, what is your zodiac sign if you know
Fair.
it?
I'll start with my zodiac signs. I am an Aries sun, Sagittarius moon, Virgo rising,
She knows all
which makes
three.
for a very interesting combination. And I
Hmm.
got a whole lot of other interesting stuff in there. So my title is I am the co-founder and spiritual director of Empowered Endings, which is a company that my husband, who's a physician, and I work in partnership together. And then I'm also the founder and counselor for Voyages, which is my spiritual counseling practice.
So cool. So, when we were in grad school, I know that we were both kind of figuring out like where we wanted to land in the social work field, right? Which you and I know it can be so broad. You can do anything. You could be like in business as a social worker, helping people as a social worker, the classic idea of a social worker, like, child protective services. But you landed here, like where you're at now. So can you just tell us a little bit about your shift into this work, empowered endings, voyages? What does that even mean?
For sure. Yeah, I love social work. It's such a great field because there's so much that can be done, and there's so many different kinds of people and so many different fields in which people can make a really substantial difference. So I think it's a phenomenal field to be in. I feel really fortunate to consider social workers my peers and to be able to do the kinds of things that we get to do, which include, for me, I think helping people in a way that is both one-on-one and also structural, social, community oriented. So it really balances the ability to support people in their individual experience of life with also the desire that I had, that I think a lot of us share, to advocate for a better world and a
Mm-hmm.
place where people can have what they need without necessarily needing all of these extra layers of support, or having to navigate all these layers of challenge that our society comes with. So
Mm-hmm.
I ended up, because I had already been studying spiritual counseling and bereavement and pastoral care in my first master's degree, I wanted to find the space where spiritual counseling and social work intersected. And so I kept kind of coming up in end of life care and in
Mm-hmm.
hospice care and in palliative care. I started doing research and I started working in that field, and I found basically my calling. I
Yeah.
realized that this is where I belong. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And And it was an interesting intersection of a lot of years of education and professional experience combined with a lot of my own personal journey,
Yeah.
healing from illness and trauma and loss. And all of it just kind of came together really beautifully. And so where we are now with Empowered Endings is we've been working, my husband and I have been working together in our medical practice, which is a holistic medical practice that supports people in palliative and end of life care.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing that for the last 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we have noticed just extraordinary transformation in people's lives, in the patients' lives, in their family members and loved ones' lives, and even in the lives of the providers that we collaborate with.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, we thought, what are we doing that, is so uncommon or that's so unusual that it's creating this tremendous impact? Mm-hmm. And we started studying what we had done and how we had done it and why we did it the way we did it, and started systematizing it. Mm-hmm. And now we're launching our institute, the Empowered Endings Institute, to help teach community members about what we've learned, healthcare professionals about how we do what we do. And we're writing a book, Permission to Choose. Amazing. So we're going to hopefully be able to move the needle in end of life care and help people understand how important it is to have a physician involved, and how important it is to have doulas and companionship, guidance, spiritual and emotional and grief support, and all of the different options that are available to people.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, right? Because I think you and I both know, like, education, awareness of choice, right? Being able to make an informed decision as an individual is empowering. And people don't even know where to start finding the information or what they even have available to them, what their actual rights are. So being an advocate for people is so powerful. I feel like these episodes are so eye-opening for so many people that are coming up to this place in their life where they're considering their own ending, right? They're considering their death, the death of their families, loved ones, people. And it's just like, what choices do we have around this? Like, I don't even know where to begin. So that you are, again, I like the practical language of moving the needle, because realistically, you probably would agree that this industry has a long way to go.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, hospice is a really powerful benefit. Palliative care has been built in now to our traditional healthcare model and insurance model. So there's more available than there used to be.
Yeah.
Speaking sort of strictly in modern medical terms, but there's less available than there really used to be. So speaking in terms of the human experience and the history of humanity, end of life care used to be a community-oriented, home-based, natural and organic process. There was a lot of holistic, connective, supportive opportunity that has been lost by the medicalization. And so part of what we're trying to do that we think is really important is humanize the whole experience, so that people not only can find the information that they want and need, and then chart the course that they, that aligns with their goals, wishes, values, and resources, but also so that they feel safe doing it, so that they realize their human experience in it, so that they can connect with their, whatever it is, their emotional experience, their grief, their journey, their loss, their love, all of it.
Yeah. And that brings us to the second question, which is like, can we really define grief? Like, in your experience, is that even possible? I think I just want the viewers and listeners to, consider that. Like, what is that even? Is it possible?
I love that question. So one of my primary concerns with our society today, and all of the gifts of modern medicine and everything that we can do for each other because we understand things the way that we understand them. One of the primary limitations, I think, is that we are pathologizing the human experience to such a degree that people think there's something wrong with them, when really what's happening is they're just experiencing what someone who is in their position would naturally and organically experience. And what we don't have is an adequate understanding of what that is like and how to help people in it. So specifically to your question, no, I really don't think, there are people who would define grief, and there are ways in which we can define certain aspects of it, common themes, common experiences. Obviously, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did a lot of work on understanding grief, and David Kessler has done even more. And all of those are really valuable tools. But I think where we get lost is when people start comparing their experience to what they might have read or seen, which is a tiny little snapshot of what is actually happening and what has happened and what might happen. And I don't think that helps very much, because really grief is about intense, like powerful experiences. They don't fit into a box very well, and trying to put them in a box doesn't help.
Right. Yeah. Because then to your point, everyone is like falling into comparison and then being like, well, if my experience doesn't match the way so-and-so did this or what I heard it should feel like or be like, then there's something wrong with me. And then we immediately go back into the pathologizing our own experience when the reality is whatever you're feeling in any given moment is valid, because that's your personal experience of grief.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too, one of the things, Thich Nhat Hanh spoke about the two arrows. The first arrow is like the circumstance, the thing that happens that hurts. The others are the ones that we shoot ourselves with when we react to our own response to that thing. So if we lose a loved one, of course, it's natural that we would experience a lot of different things. Sometimes deep sorrow, sometimes even relief, maybe gratitude, maybe anger. There are all kinds of things that people will experience. And if we worry about it and start saying to ourselves, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or I don't want to feel this way, start resisting that experience, I think that's when it becomes harder, because instead of allowing ourselves to be where we are, we're trying to pretend or make ourselves be somewhere else. And that never really works very well.
Yeah. So that judgment is then the second arrow that we're pointing and putting back into ourselves on top of the hurt and wounding that we're already experiencing.
Exactly.
I love that analogy. I think that people are going to be like, oh God. I'm like kind of thinking of like, you know, and reflecting of like, oh, I've 100% done that multiple times in my life, but that's the journey of compassion, right? Is realizing like, oh my God, that second arrow is pointing right at me and I'm doing it to myself. I need to be compassionate here, and allowing and giving myself permission to just be real, like to your point of, you know, not judging whatever is happening. So you're mixing a lot of spirituality with what we all have to go through, right? So people are finding this to be a more spiritual experience and more holistic than, I would say, like the like whatever the regular clinical model is that seems to be divorced from spirituality. Is there a way that we could define spirituality? What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think you can define that either. I don't think anything, you know, that really brings up like a robustly existential question is ever something that anyone can define. I think we can talk about our experiences. We can certainly define aspects of it, and we can communicate about it, because we have to, using those symbols and helping to kind of put puzzle pieces together. But everybody's spirituality is different. Everybody's understanding of spirituality is different. And I mean, some people have a really, really rich intellectual spirituality, while other people have a really deeply embodied spirituality, and some people have a combination thereof. And it just, I think, is a matter of the practices that resonate with each person, and then engaging those in your life and letting those take you on your journey, or letting them be tools for you in your journey.
Yeah, I love that. In your counseling sessions with everyone, and we know that it's different per person, but we're talking about opening up to experiencing a lot of emotion and wrapping your brain around something that's sort of hard to do. So I'm imagining that there's a certain amount of support you're giving that contributes to the transformation that people have in working with you. Because going back to what you were saying at the beginning, you're like, whoa, this is so transformational for like pretty much everybody coming in and getting the support that you and your spouse are giving. So what lends itself to this transformational process? Like, what is it that you're doing that's different?
That's a great question. I think at the foundation of all of it is really deep connection. Honestly, I think a lot of what the traditional medical model doesn't offer is the opportunity for providers to really deeply connect with their patients, and also with the patient's system of support. So family members as sort of the primary caregivers and the people who are helping to navigate. when you have a doctor's appointment, they're in and they're out and they're on the subject of whatever brought you in, and that's it. There's no getting to know you. There's no finding out, more about what informs your particular goals and needs in that particular space. What we do is, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, if you're a doula, if you're a nurse, a social worker, a communications hub, whatever role someone has on our team, we take the time to connect with people, and not just with the patient, not just with their disease process, but with the whole person and with all of the people that are part of their journey. And I think that is what is most transformative, along with having choice, as we've already talked about, being informed about the options and having the freedom to really chart your own course. That agency brings a lot of dignity and peace of mind. But I think the connection is really the fundamental key, because when people feel connected, they're safe and resilient and able to explore these really deeply challenging, sometimes very personally painful spaces in a way that doesn't feel as scary. And sort of to the point of the arrows, right? Like, if you're holding someone's hand as you're walking through the valley of the shadow of darkness, you're less inclined to judge yourself or be afraid or get angry and frustrated at the circumstances, and much more inclined to be able to be present with yourself, because you're receiving that connective reflection that is an invitation to come back to you. And then you get to take whatever course is, organically inspired within you, that becomes what you do.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I know that existential dread is like one of these things that people are like terrified of. And I think that sometimes people feel like if they do enough work, whatever that even means, ahead of time, then they won't have this feeling, or that they can just like push past it. But I mean, the fear of death and dying and loss are very real very normal things. But like, are there things that you like, tools that you share with people, or mindset shifts that you offer to sort of help people open up to the dread, the fear of the loss and ending and grief?
For sure. I think ultimately it's all about the relationship that you have, the relationship that you have with yourself, the relationship that you have with the people that you're potentially going to lose, and the relationship that you have with death itself. So a lot of, and grief too. So a lot of the mindset shifts have to do with really connecting with the person, getting to know where they are, and then helping them understand, get clear about where they want to go, and then walking that particular journey. So like, some people are really afraid of confronting the idea that death is coming to them, for example. And they get really anxious or panicky when people, talk about it, and it's just uncomfortable. There's maybe even this feeling that like talking about it might make it more real, and it's scary. So being able to connect with that person, if they're interested, right, in shifting the relationship, if they're asking for it,
Sure.
Being able to connect with them and understand what it is really that is making them afraid, like naming the things that are evoking that emotional experience, and then working with them on understanding those things differently, changing the nature of their relationship. So someone might be really concerned about no longer existing, about what happens when they die. They really like their life and their sense of self, and they're afraid that when they die, that'll go away. So exploring with them how they might understand like the evolution of their identity within themselves, whether they have a spiritual practice or belief about what comes next, or also in life, like with the grieving loved ones, how they can create a legacy that also is evolving and that allows those relationships with their loved ones to evolve over time, even after they're gone, as an example.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Again, just pointing towards the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
To explore. And I think that is so beautiful, because I feel like when we don't have that freedom, that's when we just, again, have that arrow pointed right back at ourselves, locking us in to an experience that we really need to open up to, right? It sounds like it.
That's definitely been my perspective. There are also people who are very happy to be where they are and who are
Yeah.
not really open or interested in
Yep.
exploring further. That's totally okay too.
Yep.
There are a lot of different ways to do it. For me, I can't not explore.
I
And so
know we're the same.
the people who come to us are the kind of people who are interested
Yeah.
in understanding what's possible on that front in a way that maybe they don't otherwise know how to find.
Of course. And I think that's like knowing your audience, right? And like who's your ideal
Right.
client and like marketing to them. But yeah, I think the listeners of the podcast are the same, that they're people who kind of teeter on the edge of these sort of taboo things, like because society makes a lot of what you're doing, um, even the holistic approach and
Yeah.
all the witchy things or spiritual things, it is sort of still, even though it's a little bit more mainstream, having these real conversations in a confronting way, even if you're tiptoeing time and time again, like exposure yourself to it, it's still confronting, you know? I know something that we had talked about off camera last time, though, was something that you had said people want to die how they live. And
Yeah.
I was curious if you could expand on that for everyone listening and watching.
So a lot of the people that we connect with, part of what drives them to find us is that they have lived empowered lives. They have pursued their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
They have built something meaningful that they want to preserve, whether it's their family or their career or some combination or some other thing. And they've done it on the basis of gathering all the information, figuring out what their values are, what their goals are, and applying their resources and their understanding of themselves to the circumstances so that they can create something that really works for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much what we do with people. So
Mm-hmm.
in the traditional healthcare model, you get what you get. And if you don't like it, good luck.
Mm,
And if you need more, also good luck.
mm,
And what we're trying to do is create a space where if you don't have what you need, we can find it.
mm-hmm.
If you don't have what you are looking for, there's a way to connect with it. There are people who have those resources, who have been through that process, who know how to support you in whatever this particular thing that you wish for is. So, for example, end of life options are one of the things that are not available everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but are an important and powerful opportunity for people to have agency and dignity in their end of life journey.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the people, and this is just anecdotal, this is not on the basis of any research that's been done, but a lot of the people that we've supported through that process, through medical aid in dying, which is legal in California where we practice, a lot of the people who've gone through that process are people who lived in an empowered way
Mm-hmm.
and who want to have peace of mind. They want to be able to end their suffering before it becomes unbearable. And
Mm-hmm.
that's very much consistent with the way that they've lived their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of parallels on that front and others as well, like people who have holistic lifestyles, who want to have acupuncture and massage therapy and other quality of life enhancing therapeutic relationships as part of their journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily available everywhere. It's something that you
Mm,
can find, but you don't have, it's not necessarily easy to find. And different
mm-hmm.
communities have different levels of support in those particular realms. And so
Mm,
we want to create an environment, and what we've done is brought together a community of people who can provide all of these different holistic options, every kind of support, whether it's medical, clinical, or otherwise, to help people align their journey with their lifestyle.
I love that. Yeah, because to me, I never even really thought about how abruptly your dying experience can be, like, in terms of you're living your life a certain way, you've had the freedom to choose. And then all of a sudden, you're moving into a new phase of your still existence, right? In terms of a physical body. And then all of a sudden, like, you don't have access to those things. They're just like taken away
Right.
from you. And you're like, wait a second, like, what is this? Why can't I still have the things that,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that you're really just, I think, fighting for people in such a beautiful way of and advocating and being like, no, you should be able to have this up until the time that you can no longer say that you want it. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the other interesting points is there are a lot of people who have had experience with dementia, lots of different kinds of dementia,
Sure.
and who have concerns about what might happen to them if they get dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So helping people understand what they can put in place and how they can help prepare their family to support them in ways that are, again, consistent with their goals, their values, and their lifestyle. Just being able to talk about things like that that's not something that you can necessarily access in the traditional healthcare model.
Yeah. So what are some things that people can use to better prepare themselves for a peaceful death? I'm sure if somebody says they want a chaotic death, that's on them and they'd have to tell you that's what they want. But I think most people probably want like a peaceful one. But like making sure that they're surrounded by their preferred experiences. Other than working with you guys, like where would somebody even get the ball rolling in that area?
I think the easiest thing to do, which requires no resource outside of yourself, is to really imagine what you would want to experience. People can be in hospital or at home. They can be alone or with loved ones. They can be receiving treatment up to the last minute or letting go of curative treatment so that, in favor of comfort care and quality of life experiences. So imagining what it is that you might want to experience, kind of connecting with yourself, your future self, and understanding what might feel good if you are facing the end of your life, if you are sick in some ways and you are recognizing your own mortality. What would you want? Would you want to be in your home? Would you want to be surrounded by your loved ones? Would you want to have music as a part of your experience? Would you want to have touch, massage? What kinds of things? Do you want to have a doctor who is readily available to help support you clinically? Do you want to go to the hospital every time something happens, or do you want to try and stay home if that's possible and you can get what you need? So really just envisioning, I think, would be the first thing. Envisioning what you may wish for, who you may be at that time, and who you may wish to have with you would be a great start. Then there are also resources like 5 Wishes. On our website, empoweredendings.com, we'll have tons and tons of resources to explore what the options are and deeper consideration. So, just free resources where people can get a better sense of what's possible or probable and then how they might relate to it. And then the advanced healthcare directives, there are medical documents that people recommend completing early on so that you have a sense, even if you're nowhere near the end of your life, of what you may wish for if something were to occur. Being willing to kind of confront those questions and ask yourself today, and this is just today, how would I feel? What would I want? What would that look like? And what can I put in place to support myself having that experience later?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think it is, again, going back to the theme of being empowered. Why not think about it now while you're so okay to do so? Yeah, absolutely. So you guys are making a lot of changes in the death industry itself. And if there's one area that you could focus on, what would it be? And also, we have 10 minutes left and then we'll hop back into the second half. Is that fine with you?
Totally.
Okay, cool.
So I think there are two, one would be hard to choose. I have a few.
I know. Go ahead. Tell us all.
I think one of the most important things is that doctors need to be a part of end-of-life care. At this point, when someone is nearing the end of their life, their doctors typically refer them to hospice, and doctors are not really engaged in hospice care. They're a part of it, but they're not meeting the patients face to face on a regular basis. They're not available to family members to answer questions. And there's something really powerful about having a person with that level of training and experience and, frankly, authority sitting down with you, listening to you, understanding what you want and need, and then helping you achieve that. That's something that is really healing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what doctors are designed to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
a healing profession, and being able to connect with people and understand what they want and need and then help them achieve that
Mm-hmm.
is an act of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So having doctors involved in whole person, trauma preventative, culturally competent, personalized care would be my number one thing.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I think would be really fantastic would be to have doulas legitimized in the medical field, as has been done in the birthing field. So, the birth movement went
Mm-hmm.
from taking birthing out of hospitals between mothers and doctors only and putting it into communities. So there are birthing centers, into the home. Home births are now supported. There are doulas and midwives that have different roles in that process to add the emotional, spiritual support,
Mm-hmm.
companionship alongside the clinical needs.
Mm-hmm.
So having that companion guidance, I think, would also be really, really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of doulas, a lot of people, some people who are retiring from medical professions and going
Yeah.
into doulaship, tons of people who are really passionate about providing that bedside companionship, family support, legacy, ritual exploration,
Mm-hmm.
care.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no mechanism other than serving as a hospice volunteer
Yeah.
at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
having that be available, I think, would be really valuable. And then the other two things are really integrating family support
Mm-hmm.
into how we provide for end of life care, making it a community experience again, because right now it's basically just between doctors and patients, and that's not,
Mm-hmm.
or nurses and patients, and that's really not enough. And options, all of
Mm-hmm.
the options that we talked about, the quality of life enhancing options, the holistic therapies, the end of life options, giving people choice so that they can navigate the path the way that they want to and need to in order to feel whole as
Yeah.
they are transitioning. So,
I love it. A lot of changes. I think it's great though. I mean, honestly, I feel like this topic is, and your points are going to provoke people in a great way to really decide for themselves what is right for them instead of just sort of falling in lockstep with what they're told to do, or thinking that really what's presented is the only option. And they're like, oh, I gotta guess I gotta do it because that's it. And you're just like,
right.
actually, no, there's a lot of other things out there. And still, if people feel very moved by this conversation, to jump on board and be a part of the change, because a lot of my listeners are parents, and for their kids and for their children's children to have these options as well. It doesn't happen if people don't do anything. It's us on the ground making effort for it to happen and be available in their lifetime and lifetimes after. It's so cool.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, palliative care, which is now a recognized field of medicine, didn't exist 30 years
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is very much a part of regular hospital care, community
Yeah.
based care, all different kinds of support is available that never was before. So
Yeah.
we're really hoping that that's part of what we're doing, is to create this new field of medicine and
Mm-hmm.
support a change that will allow people to have more of what they need, or more options at least, in navigating
Yeah.
their journeys.
I think it's beautiful. Oh, our next question is, could you just share with us, actually, not more of a question, but like, yeah, share with us how this work has transformed your personal relationship with death.
Oh my goodness. I almost don't even know where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I studied a lot of philosophy and theology, and I had a lot of ideas about death,
Mm-hmm.
and about life. Um, and the experience of being with people who are dying and being with their loved ones afterwards, it made some of those ideas just evaporate into thin air, and it made some of those
Wow.
ideas feel really, really real.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, one of them, for example, is I experienced some really profound losses in my life, and I was, in my own grief journey, which was really painful and really challenging. And one of the things that I really struggled with was whether or not there is something of that person still after they're gone, and how to conceptualize that and what to do with it. And when I first experienced the most profound loss, I was left feeling completely bereft. I mean, I felt like a part of my soul had been ripped from my body, and I really didn't know. I felt so lost and so lost from that person. I really didn't know how to connect with them, or how to stay connected to the version of myself that I knew through the relationship that we shared. And it was going through these journeys with other people and learning kind of through the experience of being with others and hearing their experiences and witnessing their pain and helping to guide them through in whatever ways I could, that I came to realize who I was, what I needed, and what I wanted out of my own grief journey. So it was really powerful because there were so many different end of life journeys and grief journeys that I got to witness at a really deep, personal, and intimate level. And all of them somehow informed me in my own journey. They've all helped heal me. They've all helped me differentiate from versions of myself that, no longer were in service to my highest good. They helped me become versions of myself that I was able to deepen the embodiment of beliefs and practices that I had trusted for a long time, but maybe at a new level was able to establish roots with. So just bearing witness, being present, and really taking that as an honor, as a learning opportunity, as much as a giving and guiding opportunity, has profoundly transformed my experience of life, death, grief, and kind of everything related to it.
Yeah. And how does it inform the way that you live on a day-to-day basis? I know that I think that sometimes there's just like these like preconceived notions about like, oh, you're in the death industry, so you're probably just like jaded and all these things. But it's also like, no, I don't think that's true. Especially my just personal experience knowing you. But yeah, how does it inform how you live on the day to day?
Quite the opposite. It's the most life affirming work I've ever done.
Wow.
Because honestly, people who are facing their own mortality are in a space of presence. They're just driven to a presence with themselves and with really, again, life at like as a whole at a different level. And there's nothing more powerful than, I think, being able to embrace death. There's nothing more life affirmingly powerful than being able to embrace death. And so as I've witnessed people and walked with people in that, I've come really to appreciate that as much as I can in my own life. So I also am informed by having had a really traumatic sudden loss, where the notion that like tomorrow is a possibility was just sort of ripped from me and my awareness. And I've been able to integrate that there is likely a future, but also live with the awareness that if I'm not living today in a way that I would be happy if I died tomorrow, then I have something to change for myself.
I love that. Yeah. Girl, people are getting so many nuggets of wisdom here. Like, I'm so excited for the listeners. So what are some foundational resources as we're wrapping up? What are some foundational resources that you would like to share with listeners in death and about death? And like you guys listening and watching, links are in the show notes per usual. So as I know your Empowered Ending Sites begins to grow, that link is live. So they'll be able to just check back in and see what you offer on there too.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, we have a ton of resources on our website, also our social media. We're kind of moving forward with a new push for helping people connect with us and connect with those resources. So definitely you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, go to our website, check things out. But that's just us. And there are a ton more resources too. So there are a lot of great books and everything from the very spiritual, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, to the much more sort of modern medicine, practical, Atul Gawande's Being Mortal.
Okay.
We're also publishing our book permission to choose hopefully soon. So that will be another resource.
Yay.
There are tons, I think, of communities of people talking about it and interested in getting other people to talk about it. So there's things like death cafes, which are local all over the place. It's a community-based kind of structure where people get together and have conversations about death and dying that are really about helping people think about their own experience and understanding and relationship with death, and helping them to explore that in a safe, community-oriented, nurturing way.
Yeah.
There are even resources like grief yoga, where you can go to different places and receive support, guidance in somatic experiences that are specifically designed to help support you in processing these really deep and intense emotions around grief and end of life. So
I'd imagine everyone's like crying in that yoga session.
They've got to be really powerful.
Yeah.
They've got to be really, really powerful.
Coming out reborn, I bet. Wow.
I bet.
Yeah.
And I think too, there's something really, that I think, so my experience of life is that the deep, deep challenges that I've been through have been the highest call to the most powerful transformation. So when I was willing to confront myself in the trauma, the loss, the illness, the grief, like all of it, those are the times that I have evolved most powerfully into the person that I am becoming, have become, whatever, time, space, all of those things.
Yeah.
But that, I think, is something that is harder to find resources around. People, communities, and individual support networks where people are really invited to connect deeply with themselves through these journeys. And I think it's a lot of the holistic practitioners and providers who are moving into doulaship, for example, or like grief yoga. Those are the people where if you're looking locally, where you might find some really valuable resources within your community.
Yeah, that's a really helpful tip. Thank you so much. I think it's like so ridiculous that the common denominator, like the one thing that we're all going to end up facing is death, but then it becomes the isolating experience. Like, what the hell? Back to your original point at the very beginning, that it's like we were so much more supported by our communities in this time, like whatever our timing is, right? But like, yeah, that we can bring it back to that, and again, have a holistic approach, a full and what did you say? A whole person centered approach. Yeah, that's amazing. Liz, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate you. Time is valuable, as you know, so I just appreciate you giving it to us. And
sure, anything for you.
Thank you. Yeah, oh, sweet. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And to all of your listeners, thank you very much for listening. Yes. I look forward to hearing from any of you guys on any of our accounts. If you ever want to reach out, feel free.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.